Many thanks, John and Greg. Thanks very much for staying with us today. So on behalf of myself and my colleagues, we'll cover some forage report related information with land management decision making, and we'll cover a bit of new stuff as well. So straight into the outline, how do we use this latest technology to assist in land management decisions? Cover a little bit on the Long Paddock website, how grazing systems and models and satellite imagery combine, and forage reports. In brief, we're going to go through the overview, how do we use them for productivity, how to get reports, who uses the products, what's in the pipeline, so what's new, our new prototype long-term carrying capacity report, an all property online tool called MyForage, into pasture biomass estimates, field sampling and what's involved, some drone activity, pasture growth, pasture quality and live weight gain estimates, just acknowledging our funders from the DCAP Drought and Climate Adaptation Program and reef programs. And you will get help through John and Em in the beef program, the NRM groups and DAF. So how do our products actually assist in this sort of business? Well, we obtain and provide costly and obscure data and information to turn complex concepts into easily attainable, easy to use automated products for property assessment, and they're all free. They essentially give a desktop analysis capability, and that's for insight. We support extension consultants, researchers and graziers, and it's essential pre-visit information for those people going to other properties. A discussion and engagement tool. Sometimes it's a nudge for decision processes. That's to buy, sell, burn, spell paddocks, etc. Provides an independent umpire. This information holds no emotion whatsoever. There's limitations on scale, condition, state, pasture, species, tree effects, and David related some of those. And so it does not replace monitoring and looking across paddocks. So here's our Long Paddock website delivery portal that we've done a refurbish on in the last couple of years. We'll mainly be going into the forage page here, and you can see it down here in the carousel, as well as the webinars you can go into to see what we've done previously. Anything new on Long Paddock will show up here on the latest on Long Paddock screen. Okay, so straight into the forage reports here. What is forage? Well, it's an online system that's accessed through the Long Paddock website. There's the URL. Generates and develops property scale customized reports on climate, pasture, ground cover, land condition indicators, and using satellite imagery for Queensland only. Other products on Long Paddock do go nationally. Now, if we were sitting here as the user in contact with the Long Paddock website, we get onto the forage page, order a report. Well, it puts together any one or a number of these bits of data or calculates a grazing model and using the satellite data or climate data to put the report together, which gets emailed back to you within minutes or hours, depending on the complexity and the traffic on the system. So currently we have 12 reports and more in development. We've said that it's been used by all those people, and we've said that before, and it's to be used in conjunction, but not a substitute for hands-on monitoring and managing. Our remote sensing center provides the satellite imagery from back to 1986 to current, and that includes the bare ground imagery, foliage projective cover, so woodiness, and the seasonal green and non-green imagery. And you can get a hold of that yourself on the Finch Machine online tool, and that's the location that you can get to it there, and a little bit more on it later. So the remote sensing center at our group supplies imagery for many external applications, including the NDVI for the e-beef live weight scale sites. So our aim is to combine all the major aspects of the climate, pasture and grazing environment. It's very complex, and you can see all the interactions that are play on here. So we use the silo climate data, grazing systems model, and satellite imagery, which I guess provides a point of truth and helps us calibrate the models and and the data, the research that we've had from years back in different locations in Queensland to produce the data maps and reports. So we're going to go through the reports very briefly here, because I know some people would have used these before, but you can also see the videos that we've posted on the Long Paddock website. So here's the indicative land type report that gives you your grazing land management types for land types for your lot on plan or your properties, and you get a second page there that relates the area and the percentage due to that due to those areas. We then have the rainfall and pasture report that gives you summary on your rainfall and pasture there, a time series of rainfall, pasture growth, and total standing dry matter on an April to March basis, and breaks that into land types as well for you. Then you have the drought assessment report, which gives you over 20 maps relating on a broader spatial area on rainfall, pasture growth, soil moisture, and runoff. The regional climate projections, which gives you the current climate history, and 2030, 2050, 2070 for rainfall, evaporation, humidity, and temperature. Erodibility for the Burdekin, for the Mackay Whitsunday and Fitzroy, the vulnerability of your country, the foliage projective cover, so the woodiness of your country, and then breaks it into a summary and for land types. Very useful. The crop frequency and type report, which from the late 80s to current gives you your total crop frequency for the high value cropping area from the Gundawindi on the border right up through the Central Highlands, summer and winter cropping, as well as pulses and grains and cotton, and as well as gives you 10 years of summer and winter satellite imagery. The fire scar map, giving you the current fires or how many fires that have occurred in the last 10 years. And the ground cover map, which we'll cover in a minute in an example, monthly ground cover, and your ground cover regional comparison, which will relate your ground cover by land type with the 25k radius around your property, and then give you some detailed information on the percentiles, how it relates to the neighbouring properties. And our latest is the pasture growth alert report, and we'll cover that in a second, how it's used. But you can see those things, examples in videos on the Long Paddock website on the forage page, and also visit webinars that will relate these in a little bit more detail. So let's go on to how we would use those for productivity, and we come back to this pasture growth alert report. If we looked at the pasture growth and resilience indicator here for the next 6 months, and this is for Spyglass, the research station at Charters Towers, at a moderately high risk. So how do we get those? We've got 3 indicators here, and they relate the tercile position of the last 12 months pasture growth, the next 6 months pasture growth, and the median total cover. And I'll explain that a little bit further now. So here's going right to the cover, the total percentile cover, and this is for April for Spyglass. Here's the property here, and it's a 90th percentile, so it's in the top third of the terciles. And if we looked at that and we said, well, it's pretty good. It's in the high percentiles here. It's relating that cover to every other April going back into the late 80s. But there's a couple of red spots here, and I'd be if I'd want to ask some questions about these red spots here. But before I went on the property, I'd have a look at the ground cover report, and I'm seeing for that month in particular that those areas are down. They're reduced in ground cover a little, and we can see that on the legend down here. I'd then go to my ground cover report, and I'd look at the ground cover, and I'd say, well, there could be a land type thing going on here and up here. I'll look a little bit further to my foliage projective cover, and I see that there's a bit of timber there, but it's pretty light in timber. And it turns out for that, talking to the people on the property, that this is a bit of timber control action happening here, so that would have dropped the cover back a little bit, and this would be a lighter fire under trees, which didn't quite show up in our fire scar report So that gave us some information, but your eyes probably go to this red area here off that property. And if we had a look at the fire scar report here, we can see that there's actually been some fires here earlier this year, and that's given us a heads up that, that the ground cover has been reduced in that area. And in discussion with the people of the neighbours there, they're well aware that that's pulling back the pasture production and the need for going softly in your stocking rates and giving it time for the ground cover and the pasture species to recover. And so it's just all good information to give a bit of a heads up for the current and the next situation. Now, if we move on to the other pages of the pasture growth alert for Spyglass there, and for the last 12 months pasture growth, so from May right through to April, we're looking at the current point in time for the accumulated pasture growth for the last 12 months, and it's below this average middle tercile here. So that's a strike against, and we need to know that. For the next 6 months, the pasture growth ended up in the middle tercile here, but there's not a lot of pasture growth expected between here and the next 6 months. So we look at the front page there, and that's the information there. We get a lower than in the lowest tercile, the middle tercile, and the ground cover is in the highest percentile, and that gives us that position there on the traffic light. But you can watch the video on that, and you can catch up with it, all the finer details at a later time. Okay, so how do we request these reports? And I'm conscious that a number of people have done this before, so I'll whip through that. Now, on the forage, on the Long Paddock website, we have the forage page. This is what it looks like. That's where you can look up all the reports, the 12 reports that we have, and there's the awareness videos that you can get into down here. Now, if we were to order some reports, we have some drop-down menus here. You can order one or many. Enter your lot on plan here. If you don't know that, you can enter your property name in here, or the locality, a town, your road address, and you can select your property here, one or many. If you make a mistake, you can remove that. You can start again. You can then go into a subscription here, go the one-off or 1, 2, or 3 months, and you'll receive those at the same time every 1 or 2, 3 months. It's a free service, as it all is. Enter your email address and the property name if you want to put your property name in there. Hit submit, and that'll be all put together and be winging its way to you within minutes, if not hours. So you'd like to know how often and how much the actual forage tool is used. Well, currently since 2011, over 70,000 reports have been requested, and you can see the trajectory here, and it's still climbing here and hasn't slowed in its rate. So it's getting really popular, and 3,800 users, and currently we're getting 3,500 report requests per month, and that equates to 40% of Queensland, and we're putting out 3.2 million hectares per month, and that's what it looks like on the map here. Okay, so on to our new stuff now, the long-term carrying capacity report. It's a prototype. The aim is to automate the calculation of the long-term carrying capacity per your lot on plan or property. Its uses are as a general discussion or information tool between graziers and consultants on long-term carrying capacity. It's for checking property stock numbers, in line with your best management practice. You can check your long-term carrying capacity with your land type, pasture growth, and land condition. For example, a long-term carrying capacity increase will be gained from an increase in land condition. Our progress so far is that we've completed the prototype. The testing continues, but generally we've got good agreement through testing with benchmark properties, and we plan to release that very soon, and hopefully be out before the end of this month. And there'll be guides, webinars, and videos to support. This is a snapshot of the first page of that long-term carrying capacity. There's a location map for you where you've ordered it from here, a summary which will relate the land condition A, B, C, D, and the long-term carrying capacity in AEs, or the density hectares per AE. And we have further information breaking all that down in the subsequent pages. But further down on this page 1, you get the estimated AEs for the property and the lots on plan here under best A condition, and we break that down further on the subsequent pages. And then down the bottom we have a it'll give you that number there is for the lot on plan and the long-term carrying capacity for that actual lot on plan. And then down below here we have some information of how we put the report together. Okay, moving right along. That's quite a static model, but if you want to actually be able to put in waters and things like that, we've got a new thing in development, which is a tool, which is an online property mapper. And this is the front end of it. My forage, it will import property and paddock shape files and KMLs, draw property boundaries, establish and split paddocks as it will with lots on plan. So it's a lot more flexible than the straight model that you get straight off long paddock. You'll be able to add waters, gates, exclusion zones, change land types, pasture species, and fertility, and analyze then therefore what if scenarios. So you'll be able to change things and then run it through and see how that changes your carrying capacity. Be able to save the projects, export files to other programs, and you'll actually be able to order all the forage reports direct from that program instead of just from a full property or lot on plan basis. You'll be able to break that down into paddocks and polygons due next year. Okay, so on to some of our really new stuff, and this ties in with the e-beef and the walkover weighing in terms of providing biomass estimates. And here's the Wombiana grazing trial at Charters Towers, and our scale here is darker colours are in kilos per hectare down to the lighter colours here and on the legend, and you can see that across the paddocks here. For those who know the trial, there's a couple of high stocking rate paddocks here, and you can see that they're lighter in biomass compared to the other paddocks here. Across the bottom of the trial here, there's more biomass that's been where the country fired up a little bit from the last wet season, and up through here to the box country didn't kick off as well. So we can actually supply those to the e-beef property areas paddocks in time. One of the issues with the with using the satellite imagery is where we convert ground cover to biomass is when you've got high values of ground cover here, like you've got nearly 100% ground cover here. That's no different to something that's up to your knees or to your waist in terms of what the satellite sees. So we need to use extensively field sample and calibrate for local areas to make sure that we've got very robust algorithms that work season in, season out across the years. And to do that, we have comprehensive field data collection. This is a sample of how we do the field collection, and these 3 100-metre tapes, essentially taking up a hectare sort of view of the site. And we measure every metre along these tapes with ground cover, and do also estimates of greenness and what we find at ground level and above to reconcile with the satellites. What we also do is collect quadrat material. So there's 18 quadrats that are cut, and pasture biomass and litter is collected from there, and this is what it looks like in the field with every speck collected there to reconcile with our satellite data that we've interpreted there. We also walk along all those sites with a pasture rising plate meter, as well as right across the site there, 300 to 400 samplings to get as much information as we can out of the site, and we're doing that by season in the same location and right across Queensland. But to even further enhance that data is our latest. Our field scientists are moving into the drones, and we're able to fly that area and get much more comprehensive information through the use of hyperspectral and multispectral cameras here that are worth probably 3 times the value of the drone in itself. And if you'll indulge me for a second here, I'll fly you along some TransX here up in North Queensland here, Mount Surprise. So you can see our it's a simulation of the drone flying through. So it's not actually scrub pulling here, but it's approaching the middle of the TransX here, and it's collecting a lot of information there that we probably couldn't get just from the TransX in itself. We talked about Finch Machine before, and this is what you see when you bring up the ground cover on the fractional cover on the ground cover program called Veg Machine, and it's available here. Just type in Veg Machine, you'll come to it. You'll see that you can get green material, non-green, so that's the non-photosynthetic material, and bare ground, not just greenness, and you can get every mix in between there. And I'll just show you some examples here where for our Wombiana trial across those paddocks there, this is spring 2019, so all haying off here. And for those high stocking rates here, you can see those colours going into a bit of red there. So yeah, a bit more bare ground showing through there. So if we move to summer there, and it was a late summer, so we didn't get a lot of firing through there. We could see the high stocking rate paddocks are starting to show a little bit more bare ground there. Even further, we move into autumn, and it was a late season. So across the box country here, we're getting a lot more pasture growth action here. Down here, it's probably a lot more non-green, and so it didn't show up as much there. But as it's been shown in the other presentations, all the action is around the dry season, and that's what's coming to hit us next. So we've covered this before in the other presentations with Tim and Dave, where we've got digestibility of pasture and how it oscillates from dry season to the wet season, and so does follow the live weight gain of the animals. And the big unknown is what to how to respond in management to these peaks and in these troughs in the digestibility and therefore the live weight gain. So one of the research questions that we're following is a common industry question, and that's will and when cattle require N supplementation after the wet season ends, and can we build a monthly model to report from the end of May with forecasts of pasture quality, that's crude protein, the digestibility, transitioning into the dry season. So if you had the pasture quality curve here, so into a dry season, coming out of it, and May 31st is here, and we're expecting it to trough out here. And if this was a threshold for action here, whether we were going to sell or feed or move paddocks, we'd like to know when it dipped under that threshold there. I mean, it'd be excellent information to know where you are on this curve regardless, but to get a forewarning how this next period through the dry season was going to occur would assist in the walkover weighing where units can't be set up everywhere. So that would be an advantage to have that sort of a heads up. Last slide now, the average daily gain, the live weight gain is in development as well. So straight from satellites for a paddock on 2 paddocks on Wombiana. And we've got some fairly good agreement here between the observations and the predictions across time here. But just bear in mind that we see quite a bit of range here in the error, so we do have a lot more work to do in terms of getting data in to handle all situations and to move off property and have it work robustly across seasons and location. Okay, so we turn our systems turn complex concepts into useful products for land management decisions. We have more products in development on the Long Paddock website. There will be more communication videos and visualizations planned. To contact the EBIF officers, the NRMs and DAF through John for product info and usage. There are other products with similar technology available, and there's no one silver bullet that tells you everything. So a lot of these products and tools can be used in sync. But ours are free, and we're in there for the long haul. So to stay informed, go to the Long Paddock products. And thanks very much, John and Greg.